Al?
Here.
John's here. Mindy?
Here.
Adam?
Here.
Lee is not here. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda? Mindy beat Al.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any edits or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, Randy, I'm gonna have to remember you're on the phone. All right, with that, we'll do approval of the minutes from our August 21st regular meeting. Is there a second? Motion and second. Any comments or changes? All in favor? Opposed? All right. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience who's not already scheduled to talk on an item on our agenda? Okay. With that, we'll move to item number 6, the 5K run at Aspen Park on October 5th.
I will let Mandy come on up and maybe just tell them about it and answer questions if you would like to, please.
Okay. Well, first, we're still looking at October 5th or October 12th. It just kind of depends on availability of, I feel like I'm echoing, of all the parties that are kind of involved. So we're looking, we've done this, it's usually been an annual event that's held in May. But this year, I had some personal things going on, and Jamie had a baby at Anytime Fitness, so we kind of postponed. And we didn't think that we were going to put anything together, but we're back by popular demand, trying to do things here down to the wire. So it's a fairly small event. We expect usually between 150 to 250 people, generally in person. We start and end in Aspen Park. We've always had a little bit, the only issue I guess that we've ever had is like there was college baseball, I think, the last 2 years going on at the same time, but that is not an issue in the fall. And I think we visited with Devin, whatever. The only part that we had an issue with was that we had runners, walkers that we went on the road in and out. And I guess our plan is if that would happen again, that there's something else there that day, we'll just go on the sidewalk instead. So there's enough people, or it's a small enough event that's kind of how we plan things. Jamie is looking as far as the route of the 5K, that we'll either do the same route that we have in the past where we go out around the high school, like out Aspen Boulevard and around the high school and kind of back to be a full 5K. And we're also looking, just based on past comments, to see if there's any way that we can make a route where we would actually go through the Big Sioux Rec area instead. But we'd be crossing one street regardless, and then staying on public sidewalks and that kind of thing for the event there. As far as the actual event, we're looking this year at being able to start setup at around 7 a.m. Registration for the run walk for people checking in would begin at 8:30, and then the actual 5K would start at 10 a.m. Usually it takes even our walkers about an hour and a half max, and we plan to be out of the park around noon. So it's a pretty quick and easy deal. We usually have sponsors that are animal related, booths and that kind of thing set up for information. We set up on the west side of Aspen Park, like just south of the pool, and they kind of set up their tents and stuff in the grass along that sidewalk area, so that we spread out, just because our biggest risk is having a bunch of dogs together. So we try to minimize that risk as much as possible. So never had an issue, and we've really enjoyed. We used to be at the high school, or started at the high school, and it's been a really good move for us going to Aspen Park instead. So, questions?
Devin, any comments?
About the only thing we'd probably have is the Big Sioux route. You know, they're doing that, maybe you don't know, they're doing construction through there.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
we would prefer to not go that way.
Okay, and I'll let Jamie know that. She was just looking at
Yeah.
the best possible route for the people that are kind of
Yeah,
measure out exactly
I'd
the
recommend
5K.
just stick to the normal route,
Okay.
at least for this year.
Okay,
We can
that sounds
look at it
perfect.
again
We can
next
do that.
year.
And then the only thing that we would need from the city is just that, like I had mentioned before, just those bathrooms to be open that morning so that people can utilize those. Otherwise, we have everything. We pull power, I think, for our speaker But that's, and we've done that through that building, there's an outlet on the outside, so. Where the bathroom building is. Yep, yeah, so we set our speakers up on the opposite side, just so that it's not blaring in people's, yeah.
Would there be any junior football? Okay.
Flag football's on Tuesday nights. Yeah, the only conflict I can think of would possibly be baseball. I checked with Chris Brown. He said there's nothing, but he also said that the last 2 nights while we were working on the parking lot, and there's been 2 baseball games there, so.
Like I said, we have had college baseball games going on there at the same time, and we have a plan if it happens, and we can pretty much move pretty easily just to the sidewalk, so we don't have an issue with traffic, so.
Thanks, Mandy.
Yeah.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved?
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, Randy's in full support.
Yeah. Have a good night, you guys, thank you.
Thank you. We clarified that, Randy. Okay, with that, that takes us to item number 7, which is the Aspen Park Road alternative improvements. Who would like to start?
I guess I can. Handed out a bunch of dead trees for you. The email from DGR and then
It's the
a
only
number
kind
of
that
options.
you like.
What?
It's the only kind that you like.
These are all ash trees. So, it's good. An idea that came up was, in lieu of doing ironwood, would it be beneficial to widen Aspen Park Road to add, so it's 3 lanes at the intersection of Nicholas. So you would have, and if you look on this sheet, the second page, in the upper right-hand corner, inset A, kind of shows a right turn lane and then a through lane that would exit onto Nicholas, and then and then the entrance into the park. I think everybody knows that that exit, everybody backs up because they don't want to take a right-hand turn to get to Aspen. And then if there's traffic on Aspen, it just backs everything up. So this would give people exiting the park an option to go straight on Glenwood at that intersection. So what DGR looked at and what we asked them to do was what would it take to widen Aspen Park Road by an additional 12 feet. That would be primarily on the west side. So part of that would be the parking in front of the, we can't have it any closer to the water treatment plant. So it would go into the west side of the road. That would remove all of the pool parking that is currently on the road. So part of this is a pool parking lot constructed between the pool and the tennis courts. I know we've talked about that a couple of times in the past. Included in the thick packet is all of the proposals or the options. So Aspen Park Road, we would add 12 feet to the existing roadway down to, if you look on that second page map, I have a highly detailed black line, kind of where the proposal splits. The north half of that to pave the road would be $430,000, which would be a 12-foot addition to the existing roadway. Another $246,000 if you chose to put curb and gutter in there, which I think, at least in my opinion, would be the recommendation. Because if you drive along that road now where there's no curb and gutter, the edges are breaking up. So, and then to take the pool parking lot would be another $455,000, and that does include curb and gutter in the parking lot. So, 1.1 million to get it down to basically the driveway going into the big parking lot as a reference point. And then if you wanted to take the road all the way down to the hockey facility, that'd be another $690 in road costs, potentially 200,000 for curb and gutter, total of 886. So you got the total numbers there, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million to do the entire project.
Was there a cost assembled to pave the baseball parking lot?
Yeah, that's parking lot options. We can get into those. I broke those out separate since those are, wouldn't necessarily impact the access in and out of the park. It'd be for parking. If you wanted to pave the parking lots, and they're broken down to 4 different cost estimates. The first one, which is the main area, and that's showing, I should have numbered the pages, shouldn't I? Sorry. Like that. 820,000 to pave it, another 160 for curb and gutter if you wanted to put that in there for 980,000, and you'd get 251 parking spaces. And then for their south, so basically from the sidewalk north of Field A to the south, there's 3 options to look at. The first one paves pretty much everything that's in that parking lot now, reroutes the road a little bit to the south. That's 529,000 for paving, another 86,000 for curb and gutter if you wanted to do it, and that had 148 parking spots. So you have a total of 399, and then each one, option B and option C, get a little bit smaller in those proposals. So there, you'd lose, about 30 parking spaces in each one. So depending on the parking lot paving option, would dictate total cost if you want to do the parking lots as well.
Shifting that road, Aspen Park Road, to the west, right?
Mhm.
Does that create any drainage issues?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do a little bit of grading work anyway in the park, and so I think we can work around those. You know, when we put in curb and gutter, there's still gonna have to be some storm sewer installed. It's doable.
All right, so thanks for going through the numbers, Brian. Is there anything else numbers-wise you want to highlight?
As we talked about kind of as an alternative to Ironwood, total cost for Ironwood is 2.9 million to bring that in. The city share of that would be 2.3, so about 80% of the project cost would be city share between what is non-assessable costs and the special assessment we would have on Aspen.
So the total Ironwood cost, that's just the new portion of
Yep.
Ironwood? That would not include expanding anything going north?
No, that's just to the property line.
And did you look into how much it would cost to pave the hockey rink?
No. The hockey rink parking lot? Nope.
I would guess it would be in the $450,000, $500,000 range, Mindy, just as a shooting from the hip.
Yeah, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, hockey is required to pave the parking lot, their own parking lot.
And have we talked to baseball and softball about how much they're willing to contribute to their parking lot?
Not yet. Yeah, we just got these costs today.
Well, that's a loaded question. So let's just back up a little bit. So the idea being that we're looking at this because one, Ironwood is inevitable, it's not gonna happen, or it's gonna be long enough that we wanna do this meanwhile.
It was proposed as a possible lower cost alternative without special assessments, and I think everybody knows the special assessment process can be fairly painful and contentious. So this might be a cheaper opportunity to improve egress from the park, and not do Ironwood. At some point in time, this point in time, it would be probably by the developers. We're planning on paying, currently in the budget for 2025, the Ironwood extension is to be paid with fund balance and then special assessed back to the property owners. If this was done, we would just move the Ironwood money to this project. And then a couple of options, if we still needed to do Ironwood, developers weren't ready to do it yet, we would either wait until they were ready, or the city would have to borrow the money to Ironwood.
I guess I'm curious on the advisory committee's opinions on this as a substitute. So Tammy, I guess while everybody thinks about that, as far as the entrance road right now, what do you think the current life, I realize it's different parts, but what do you think the current lifespan is on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's not even really a road. And the entrance part of it is really showing through. There's quite a few areas that probably need to be cut out and redone somehow. I think our 2-inch overlay that we did last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, still looks pretty decent, especially after all the construction traffic we've had. But it's not really a road either, so we're not real sure what's the base course underneath of it. And
It's probably not much. I just talked to Devin this afternoon. We're putting in that handicapped parking areas we talked about a month or so ago. So they were scratching out through the gravel, and there might be 4 inches in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, it's only, it's
That's
been,
a bad thing. Usually what we see here is 6 inches of gravel. I don't think that's adequate myself, but most of the engineers in this area think it's adequate. So,
yeah, I think it's all relative based on what it's sitting on. You know, the good news is we're kind of sitting on top of a gravel pit, so it's a matter of how deep is the soil underneath it, I guess is the question. But
theoretically, you want to get rid of all the black organics and then replace it with rock. So I'm not sure how deep the black organics go.
there's always options, but usually options equal money. So, I mean, so ultimately, I guess me asking that question, at some point, we're looking at this road redo anyways, correct?
it's kind of a temporary fix for this guy.
Yeah. When it comes to the parking lot, obviously, we've talked about this forever, right?
Which parking lot? The pool one or the big one?
Okay, no,
The big one?
thank you,
Okay.
thank you for asking, the big existing gravel
Yes.
one. I mean, although you can have the same conversation about the pool parking along the road, but, I mean, technically, we've always skirted our own rules, our own ordinances, right? Just from cost efficiency, we've done it at McCarty and we do it here, just because the cost is significant, right? Again, it's probably something that we've been faced with for, I don't know, 20 years. We'll just say for the sake of discussion, 10. At some point, our budget that we always deal with has never been there to do a project like this. Because we always knew it would take council action to do it. If I add up all these numbers right, the whole shooting match, I kind of got about 3.7 million. If we take curb and gutter and do the road the whole way and do the pool parking lot, is that close?
Probably. I mean, in my mind, granted I'm not an engineer, but we should have curb and gutter along the north part. It'd be surmountable, so people could still park in the grass. As far as curb and gutter along the south, I'd prefer curb and gutter because it holds the edge of the road.
Right.
I don't know if it's quite as needed on the south half.
Oh, I think you've eventually run into the same problems, especially if we put another building down there and there's more traffic and.
Curb and gutter in the parking lot, you're gonna, if you don't put curb and gutter in, you'll still have to have some of those parking,
And Devin will,
blocks.
they'll scrape all that up in the snow,
No, they
so,
won't.
yeah, they will.
They're better than that.
I'll hold you to that. Anyways, I just was trying to get a feel for the total dollars, so even if we've got 2.3 budgeted as part of Ironwood right now, in theory, we're still, if we were gonna try to eat the whole thing, we're still a good million short.
Yeah, cause if you did everything, curb and gutter included, the north part with the parking lot's 2 million, and then you'd be looking at $1.5 million for the main area, and then I'm assuming option A, since it's,
The
has
most
the
parking,
most parking spaces.
that's what I included in the number, I guess, if I was listening correctly.
Unless somebody has a recommendation to go smaller,
So
with fewer parking spaces.
I think from a safety point of view, with the master plan that the committee approved and all of our discussions with the public, obviously exiting out of the park in multiple ways has always been a priority. And I know that there's issues around getting Ironwood done. Personally, with the construction of hockey down there, I think it puts more emphasis on trying to have another way out of the park sooner than later. I know we only have so much money as a community to put into public infrastructure. I would hate to see us do whatever is decided to be done, whether it's $1 million worth of improvements or 2 or 3, and then have it be like, well, because we did that, we're not going to pursue Ironwood for 20 years or 15 years. And while that may seem like a long time when you're sitting here, we all know that that can go pretty fast. And, I'm assuming with the success that we will see from hockey and the continued success of baseball and the continued success of the pool, and the growth of our community, we're just going to see more and more pressure on this park. So that conversation isn't going to become less relevant. I mean, if we were doing this out in the county or somewhere else, the first order of requirement would be 2 ways to get out of the park because of public safety, right? If there's a fire or a storm or whatever. And so while I feel like from my own standpoint, these proposed improvements to whatever level they're decided to be done, I think are really great. But I personally would have concerns that they're being done at the cost of taking the easier road just because, so to speak, just because Ironwood is problematic with the special assessment. Now, I can completely understand the developer, Brian, your comment about wanting the developers to do it because then they're going to have interest in getting it done. I completely agree, but we can't put any timeline on that. Is that going to be 5 years or 10 years or 20 or 30? And then there's Mindy's question about hockey parking and that issue. I'm assuming your take on it is, why is it fair for us to build parking for baseball and not for hockey? Just in a brass tacks kind of way. So, we've got to work through that issue as well. So I just present that for your thoughts.
It'll lead me in. I guess I completely agree, that we should not be putting off Ironwood any longer than we need to get that extra entrance out of that park. We've been talking, since I was on council, we've been talking about needing this entrance and how dangerous it is down there without it. I do think that this is a good Band-Aid, for that, and in totally in favor of putting that parking lot between the pool and the tennis courts. We've been too, but if we're taking away the parking on that road there for the pool, we do have to supply parking for the pool. It gets the kids off the road a little bit. We've talked about that too for safety reasons and everything. So I guess that parking lot, I don't think we really have a choice for if we're going to do this expanded road. Expanding the road all the way down to the hockey rink to where the new Ironwood then would go, I think is being a little proactive. And, you know, we're gonna have to do it at some point anyway. And doing it now, maybe we get it done cheaper than we would get it done 6, 7, 8 years from now. I am not in favor of doing any of the parking lot options, main area, option 1B or C, unless we include hockey in that. Because if we're gonna have people down there paving parking lots, we just as well do the whole kit and caboodle. So if we're gonna fund any parking lot other than the pool parking lot, then we need to fund them all. And then we also probably need to look at funding parking at McCarty for the soccer. Because where do you stop? We can't just pave parking at the baseball fields and say, oh, hockey and soccer, you guys are gonna have to pay for your own if you wanna pave that. That's not fair. It's not what our tax dollars are supposed to be going for. I realize that we don't have any money for this. And if we are going to ask people to do this, then, you know, we can help out. But I just think if we're going to do one, we need to do them all.
Randy, any thoughts on the phone? Thanks, Randy. I think that's good thoughts, I guess. Obviously, whatever way is decided upon on this, there's some big numbers involved. I mean, I know the construction industry good enough that I know there's been some conversation about potentially getting some of this done still this year, which I think is super wishful thinking, and certainly would probably come at a maximum cost.
I don't think we can get anything done this year, because the plans and specs have, this is all very preliminary. There's been no design work done on it. So to get documents ready for bidding is probably like 60 days, and then we've got a 30-day bidding window. So
congestion standpoint, the one thought that I had about, you know, if we have 3 lanes at the entrance to the park, and yes, obviously people could go straight as opposed to turn right to get to Aspen, but will Aspen congestion still kind of limit cars going out of there? The things I like about the plan, if we take the, you know, the spaces that are against that road right now, we widen the road so they're gone and they're in the parking lot, I think, you know, that is a big safety issue by the pool there. I think also by diamonds H and I, we would also lose the parking on the west side that people go on the grass right now. And are you not thinking?
Potentially.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, I just think we have to consider that those cars then have to go somewhere, right?
Yep.
So I think we'd lose spots, but you also don't have little kids running across that road, which is darn busy.
I can, not to interrupt, well, I am interrupting you.
That's fine.
In my mind anyway, those parking spaces would still be there, but no, they wouldn't. Because that 12 feet would, on that side, would certainly take it up to close to the sidewalk.
Well, doesn't that take out the sidewalk?
Wouldn't take up the sidewalk, although you're losing some green space in there between the sidewalk and the roadway. So yeah, I didn't even think about losing
Yeah, it's gonna,
the west side.
I mean,
yeah, we're gonna lose those spots, so we'd have to account for that, but again, I think the safety might outweigh that, and maybe that makes it less congestion, people trying to get into those spots or get out while you got in and out traffic, might be a good trade-off.
Would those spots be made up though in the pool?
I think that's too far away, I don't think people are gonna walk from that lot, personally.
For tournaments.
They will for tournaments, but I think if you're talking about T-ball games,
They're gonna drive over the sidewalk and still park on the west side.
you may be right.
well, and that's what, I think there's a lot of, I don't wanna go down the rabbit hole of details, cause I think there's a lot of things to talk about. I mean, there could be instances where you wanna do roll curb along some of this so that you could, in theory, park up on the grass and special events, right, and flag it off if you wanted to. I mean, there's just a lot of things to work out, like some of the details, like Al said. I do think it would be interesting to know that if we're, you know, if we at least widen the road and put the new entrance into the park, what the engineer thinks that we can accommodate for exiting purposes out of there, compared to having a second entrance at Ironwood. And that's not to say that that's in support of one or the other. I just think it's good for us to go into this with our eyes wide open, like Randy was talking about. Roundabouts are always good.
Did you bring that up?
The school
quiet.
administrator. So, I think, you know, ultimately, obviously, Brian, I know that your staff is bringing this to us because it's a new iron that got put in the fire for consideration here. What are you looking for exactly from us?
At this point in time, there's a lot of information to digest. So I'm not asking you for a yes or no. Take a look at it. If you have any additional questions, I've got some notes here. If you have any additional questions, let us know. But if, you know, ultimate recommendation is to do this and then the council approves it, you know, we'd have to get rolling on plans and specs to get it
Yeah, I
bid
think,
next year. And then it gets down to construction. I don't know if we would really wanna do this construction, you know, April 1st, cause it will take quite a bit of time.
I'm assuming that you'd wanna bid it in the end of the winter.
Yeah, we
To get it kinda in the books, but then construction wise, that you'd probably do it at the end of summer, into early fall, or late fall, early winter.
the pool usually closes the second or third week in August, which generates a lot of traffic. Baseball, softball usually gets done first part of July. Baseball hangs on with a few more activities throughout July. And then there's the Class B tournament next year.
The amateur tournament.
The amateur tournament in
That's,
August.
yeah, like 11 days in August.
Yeah, so,
Sure be nice if there was parking by then.
oh yeah,
But,
it'd be awesome.
I mean, there's probably some things you can phase out and break out, like the pool lot, right? There can be a temporary gravel connection to that. That could probably get built at a time that the engineer and contractor saw fit, right? I mean, you could build in some flexibility, but it's
I mean-
gonna be hard to do the road until we can.
Yeah, and even the pool parking lot, I would wanna do that after the pool closes, just for, I know if I was a kid that going down to the pool and hey, there's a construction site right next door, I know where I'm going after I get done swimming. So we wanna limit that potential.
What kind of kid were you, Brian?
I'm not gonna tell you.
Any other kind of thoughts for Brian and staff to consider? Tammy, was there anything that was on your radar about this that you want to mention?
No, I think we will try to stripe the 3 lanes at the entrance probably this fall, and we can just watch that and see how that goes. I don't know if people are gonna know enough to go straight and use that center lane to get out to Sioux to turn left and right there instead of always going to Aspen. That seems to be kind of be the problem, is everybody wants to turn right on Nicholas and then right on Aspen. They don't know enough just to go straight to Sioux.
Or even left on Aspen.
Yeah.
And one thing as far as congestion, that exhibit that's on that second page, I think we would consider or striping it further down, further to the south, to make sure that people got in the appropriate lanes sooner.
Yeah.
So we'd had to take those lanes further south.
I think that's a good thought. They're likely gonna have to do it in halvesies
Yeah,
to keep things open.
the email memo from DGR indicates it'd be a one lane during construction. So during hockey season, you'd have ingress and egress, hopefully not at the same time like baseball, softball.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, so,
yep. Yes, it's not an easy, work area.
no, it's not. I guess, I just wanna say that I'm very appreciative of kind of the creative thinking, knowing that we've got a longer term problem with Ironwood that we're trying to deal with, you know, and trying to make it better, which I think is in everybody's best interest. I think that's a good thing. I also think I don't wanna lose track of the fact that while this is creative thinking, we were still gonna be looking at some of this in the near future, right? So I don't want it, my own perspective, I don't want everyone thinking that this is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, cause at some point we're gonna be forced to be having at least some of this conversation, no matter what's decided. And I think that'll be important from a council perspective as well, to understand that some of this stuff is deferred maintenance kind of things that we were gonna eat one way or the other at some point. So,
Yeah, if you remember the overlay that we put on the road is very temporary.
yeah.
If you drive down there now, most of it's holding up, but you can start to see
Spots.
some deterioration. So we never considered it permanent. At some point in time, yes, Aspen Park Road is going to have to get done.
It would be a lot easier to do Aspen Park Road North when you have a south exit.
Yes, it would, but
And just one other thing I'm gonna.
I'm not
put in
sure
that-
we can inch the road along that far.
I'm just putting the plug in here, we've got IM 28 hanging over our heads, which is IM 28, which is the grocery tax, or the human consumption tax.
Consumables.
Depending on, if we're looking into the far as revenues, sales tax is a pretty big component for us. Makes up about half of our tax revenue, over half now. So estimates, early estimates, when it was just considered groceries, we were looking about $500 to $550,000. The state has taken another look at human consumption and all of the components that could be considered human consumption. And our revenue loss would go up to 2 to 2.5 million. Yes, 2 to 2.5.
What is that a percent of our budget? Just
It's
so people know.
the first number, it's about a little under 10% of our sales tax revenue. The higher number is about half. So,
And sales tax makes up over half of our total budget?
yep, we brought in last year 5.3 million in sales tax, and I think our property tax levy is about 3.5 million.
Let's
So
not,
I am 28. I cannot lobby you. I could just give you the information. Yeah. For you to
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. All right, with that, let's move on to our last agenda item, which is signage at hockey. And I didn't think you would mind listening to the parking conversation. I'm sorry to make you wait, though. So, I made an assumption I should have asked. All right, Devin, is there anything you want to? Okay.
In about a half hour, P and Z will be discussing signage for hockey. They're allowed 200 square feet of wall signage. They would like more. Or since you were meeting anyway, we just wanted to pose the question to you: is their design something you would be happy to have in the park?
What's in the packet, that is what hockey wants, that's front and back of the building, or?
Well, you always want more, if you can get it. I'm Tom Grunick with Brandon Valley Hockey Association, president. It's the size of the building is what kind of, and you guys have regulations in there to obviously regulate that, and I get that. And we're happy with whatever, but it doesn't look right on the building when we mock it up. And we'd like to have one on the backside to catch that traffic. We'd like to have one on the front. And when we do that, then it drops the sign down to 5 by 20, 5 foot by 20 foot. 100 in the front, 100 in the back. We're allowed 200 for the entire building.
It's Patrick, right now, this proposal exceeds it by what? Do you know?
If each of them was, I think your original plan was about 200 a piece, and there are 4 of them.
Well, so there's a couple mock-ups. There's one that's over the front. It's 8 by 20, 8 by 32, I think. Or no, I'm sorry, 8 by 20 in the front. And then they had 2 banners on the side, which that could be optional. We could just maybe get temporary signs for those during the season and then pull them. But the back one is the main one. They want it 8 by 32, just to make it fit between the lines. There's vertical lines on the building. Yep. There's vertical lines on the building, just to make it look proportional. That's what they suggested. And unfortunately, that increases the signage size, which then violates the ordinance.
These are not lit signs.
No, no. Yeah, and then the other thing too is, I think maybe we'd light the front one, but not the back one, just for the patrons, the residents in the back, you know.
But what I meant is they're not neon
No,
signs,
no,
right?
they're just,
You would just have like a light,
they're
directional
a
light.
flat aluminum panel, and then they just screen print over the top of them, so. Yeah. It's just unfortunately, it's a big building, and
Understand.
it's based on the frontage, and then we got an ordinance to fix that. But and then the ordinance stops it at 200 to maximum.
I guess, just for the sake of discussion, my standpoint would be to support the 2 permanent signs on the front and the back, and that the the side signage would just be temporary banners in nature for what they wanted to I can understand wanting to have, I mean, this is a building that doesn't really have a back door, right? It doesn't, it's kind of got two faces, and so I can understand wanting to have signs at the front and the back, just from a branding and attraction perspective.
Well, I am too, plus it brings more noticeability from the highway if you have a sign on the back that people can see. I know it's still difficult to figure out how to get around to the building with that sign on the back, but, yeah, I'm in favor of it too.
Just looking, and that's why I'd asked if this is what, if these are kind of to scale, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they look obnoxious in any way. I think based on the size of the building, they fit.
And that's kind of why I came to our designers, what makes it look uniformal, look presentable, but yet try to go within the boundaries of the city ordinances, and it just doesn't look quite right, the smaller signs. And the back sign, you won't be able to see that from the park, you can only see it from that Highway 100 road, so it's not really gonna affect the beauty of the park. And then, like I said, the two banner ones, we can always just use as a temporary signage, pull them.
All right, so would there be a recommendation?
I'll make the recommendation to accept the signage and, make the exception to the ordinance.
Sorry, for the two permanent signs. All right. Al, it was you first. All right, so there's a motion, a second. Yeah, Mindy. Oh, Randy, did you have any thoughts or questions? Okay. All right, those in favor? Opposed? All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tom.
Thank you.
No, turn right. All right. Okay, that's the last item on our agenda.
Yeah, the only question I've got for you is, do you still have your regular meeting on the 18th?
I would say let's just play it by ear and see what comes up between
I
now
think
and
there is one, somebody reached out to me about, wanting to do a little free library with some Girl Scouts, and I told them about, that was before this one came up, so they're maybe gonna be on the next one, so. I don't know about anything else at the moment, though.
let's just keep it scheduled for now and we'll go from there. Yeah. Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? All right, we're adjourned.